or whatever we're calling it these days, together. Tom Labange is down the hallway, and as soon as he comes in, we'll do the routine items. 2 through 9 are routine, then 10 through 13 and 15 are old files that we want to note and file because they don't seem to be relevant. Item 14 will continue at the request of Councilmember Reyes. And so since this is my first meeting as chair, I want to take advantage of the opportunity to learn more about the departments and have a simple presentation. So what item is before? Item number 1, okay.
Okay. Item 1 is a discussion item. General managers from the Department of Recreation and Parks, Department of Cultural Affairs, El Pueblo de Los Angeles Historical Monument, Library Department, Los Angeles Zoo, Department of Disability, and Los Angeles Department of Aging to present an overview of their respective departments and associated priorities.
First department? Rec and Parks? Or you want to do the small ones first, or you want to go first, huh? Hey, he asserted himself, folks, so he's going first.
Thank you, Councilmember. We appreciate the opportunity to address you as a new member, a new president of this commission. We've known each other a long time, and so it shouldn't be any surprise what we're going to tell you today, being a member of the council. You want to know what the stress factors are, the issues affecting departments at this time. Quite honestly, they all derive from the budget. We're going to give you a letter we wrote to the Budget and Finance Committee last year that outlines where we are. It's over the last 3 years, we've taken a 40% cut in our disposable budget, meaning we have 40% less discretionary monies than we had before. Our actual revenues from all sources remains pretty consistent. In fact, our property tax valuation has gone up over the last 2 years, 3 years significantly. But the city, because of its financial crisis, has been forced to take monies out of our revenue sources to pay for common services. So we pay all our utilities, we pay a large portion of our personnel costs. So that's about 25% reduction in the income that we have. The other 15%, that when I mentioned 40%, is monies that is fence monies that we can only use for the programs that we get revenue from. Primarily, it's the work for the Harbor Department and for some of our housing agencies. So where we had $190 million 3 years ago that was all discretionary within our department, we're at about $112 million right now to pay for all our costs. In that letter, you will see a number of things we no longer do. And so the largest one that caused the most consternation was licensed child care. We were forced to get out of that business 2 years ago. The stresses. 2 years ago, the city did an early retirement incentive program. I supported that. I think everybody did. It seemed the kindest way to reduce the number of employees on the payroll. However, we knew that since then, we have not really effectively come into equilibrium with the current staff. So our staff members are forced to do many things that traditionally were not in their job description. We have people working in various acting capacities in management throughout our department. So where we had 10,000 full-time and part-time employees 3 years ago, we're hovering at about 5,000 right now, paid employees in the payroll, 1,500 full-time. So as we go forward, the stress is going to be trying to bring into equilibrium of the employees we have and their job descriptions and make the promotions necessary to continue this continuity. We lost over 500 employees in our early retirement incentive program. The other stress we're going to have, and I think this would be citywide, is the fact that we have not hired any new employees in the last 5 years to any degree. So we're becoming a very aged workforce, not just in age, but just in the time and grade. And what that's going to do is our least cost most productive employees are no longer there. So as we go forward, if you look at what it costs to do a job, that's traditionally what it was costing 5 years ago, it's going to look like it's costing us more now than it did 5 years ago, only because we cannot distribute that work over least cost new employees. So as we go forward, you will find us, Regina, my chief of staff, and the other members of my staff, trying to figure out exactly what programs we will be able to afford going forward. Now, we've had consultants working with us to figure out revenue sources. We've tried to figure out ways to do more with less. But the simple fact is we have roughly $78 million less in our budget, and there's no amount of fundraising, private sector, foundations that can even come close to making up that money. On a management level, we have not seen our budget going forward for next year. But every year, what they look at from a global standpoint in the city is to take all the vacant positions and sweep them up and just make them go away on the books. As a manager, that just kills my flexibility going forward. If I have my positions and they remain vacant, and let's say a Regina Adams is promoted to a general manager in some other department, I can make a decision then to take her salary and distribute it amongst many other positions that I have on fill. But if they sweep them up, then we get caught in the same process we've been caught up in the last 3 years, which is I have got to now go to the personnel committee, go to the CIO, go to the mayor's office and get these positions allocated back to me. And that takes 5 or 6 months. So from a general manager standpoint, if in fact there's no negative financial impact on the city, keeping these positions in the department vacant and we manage, you force me to manage to my payroll, that makes it a lot easier for me. So we have two things going on. One, I have less money to operate with, as we all know, and we don't have to belabor that far. And yet, I'm being hamstrung as a general manager going forward by making it impossible because I don't have vacant positions to fill. And so it becomes very difficult to do. Now, all that means is the service that we provide to our citizens becomes more sporadic and less. Because without the position control residing with me, I am forced to make bad decisions only because of the workforce that I do have. So I guess going forward, as a large department, working with less money, I can assure you we will try not to do this, but there will be less services.
Okay, having said that, and that's the case with everybody, what are the major projects that you see in the coming year?
Right now, this is going to seem counterintuitive what I'm going to tell you, because if you took at face value what I'm telling you, we don't have enough workforce to do the current work levels. Going forward, I think we need to take the opportunity we have now to acquire more parkland. I think we'd be foolish not to.
Cheap?
Right, it's cheap and it's available. We've been working with the mayor's office and with our housing department on taking foreclosed properties and turning them into small pocket parks in those areas where we desperately need it. We've used GIS technology. So you're going to see me asked to have 50 more parks going forward. And I'm talking about the next 2 years. And the question's going to be coming up. If you don't have enough money to maintain the 16,000 plus acres you have today, what makes you think adding 50 pocket parks is going to help? We're getting smarter as we go forward. We're designing our parks with less maintenance in mind. So we're going to use less utilities, less maintenance. Many of these parks are going to be gated parks, and we will be able to lock them at night and then electronically open them in the morning. So we'll be able to do it better with route. We're probably looking at the LA Conservation Corps or other agencies to help us do with the maintenance work under some sort of arrangement, contractual arrangement, where they use their out of work and out of school youth. And remember, they hire 16 to 23-year-olds who do not have high school degrees, put them through an intensive work training program, and at the end of that time, they have their GED or high school equivalent. So I think it's a very positive program. But that's how we're looking going forward. We're looking at a lot of more public-private partnerships. We have one in Lafayette Park where we worked with the Hearts of Los Angeles, where we did joint fundraising. We have $1.5 million to date to do capital projects, but they put on a lot of the arts programs that we no longer can do, and we maintain a presence there for sports programs. So you're going to see many hybrid models as we go forward, public-private partnerships. We will always maintain that workforce. I'm not even proposing, we even think about exchanging our workforce for private sector, either contract or through other 501s. But as I told you earlier, we have not hired a new employee in almost 3 years. And yet we've lost over 500 employees through early retirement, normal retirement, or transfers predominantly to DWP. So we need to figure out a way to backfill those areas with the agencies that can help us. And we're talking many agencies. We're talking the YMCAs, we're talking AYSO, but not to replace our workforce, but to stabilize the services we can provide to our constituent base. And I believe in our workforce. I believe in our civil service. I would stack my employees against any employee, public or private, across this nation. I think they're doing as good a job as anybody, if not better.
Okay, other projects?
Well, we're continuing to reduce our utilities, both our water use through smart irrigation, and we're now starting to look at putting solar panels and LEDs in all our rec centers. We have one rec center that's completely off of the power grid, that's Pecan in East LA, and we did that as a pilot project working with DWP. So I think we can make
There's no tariff involved?
There's no what?
They don't charge you for going off the grid?
No. In fact, we need to probably look at, as a city going forward, we can actually generate power and put it back in the grid. I'm not asking them to pay me, but what I would like to see is we have put these solar panels up and our power meters either stop or reverse themselves, that we then are charged less, because we still use power during the evening.
Okay. Anything else?
Well, that's about it.
What are the major venues that you hold?
Our major
What is it, for example, what is the relationship with Rec and Parks and the Greek Theater?
the Greek Theater. Rec and Parks owns the Greek Theater. We contract that out through a competitive process. Currently, Nederlander Corporation has the contract, and they're responsible for everything inside the fence line at that theater. So they pay their own utilities, they pay their own upkeep, they pay the maintenance, and of course they pay for all the shows. We just derive a financial benefit.
So essentially we get sort of monthly charge or like rent?
We get a rent and we get a percentage of gross,
Okay.
both. So there's a funding floor, and over the last 8 years since I've been general manager, they've met or exceeded every type of fund sharing.
Okay, and other venues like that?
There's not venues specifically like the Greek. We do have the Expo Center, where we have a very strong 501c3 that puts in roughly half the maintenance and upkeep and staffing for that. And that's a swim stadium, gym stadium, senior center, and others. But we are looking for other ways to generate revenues, either through expanded services or to bring in concerts. Let's say a concert in an area that has a space. Hanson Dam would be a wonderful venue.
Yeah, I've always wondered why we don't, well, we used to use it more.
We used to use it more. We've been working closely with the Army Corps of Engineers. Obviously, we're a tenant on Pueblo Basin and Hanson Dam, and they do have a say in what can and can't be done. They've been a little more difficult to work with recently, but I think I think jointly we'll go back to the model that we had in the past.
Hanson Dam's going through a specific plan?
Hanson Dam, we have we're putting in, if you look at the north side of Hanson Dam, where the library is in the museum, and we want to get the Children's Museum up and running. We're putting in a new campground, skate park. We just put in universal access playground. So that the northern portion of the Hanson Dam is being master planned.
Okay. Okay. Anything else? Okay. Well, I wish I could tell you I had a pile of money for you, but I can't do that. So we'll continue to work with you and on specific items as they emerge.
Thank
Anybody
you.
else want to add anything?
Thank you.
Thank you. What department do we have? Who wants to come forward? Just come forward. If there's chairs up here, just come and fill them up. So, what department?
Good afternoon, Chairman. Robert Andrade, General Manager of the Pueblo Historical Monument. Our site, relatively small department, but it includes 27 historic buildings. The first Avila Adobe Museum, built in 1818. Of course, the Pico House, the first city's firehouse, Italian Hall, as well as a Chinese American museum that is located in the last remaining building of the original Chinatown in Los Angeles. We are surrounded by 5 parking lots. Our budget, I'm happy to say, for the last 3 years has been off the general fund. When I was first brought on, that I recognized that was going to be a critical piece for us. Our budget is approximately $1.5 million. We also have services provided by GSD that would include the parking lots, security, maintenance, and custodial. We pay them $2.2 million, and Rec and Parks gets $100,000 for work that they do in our park area. Our mission clearly is to keep a clean, safe, family-oriented environment. We have approximately 2 million visitors a year that go through El Pueblo. Of that, 400,000 school-age children. And so security, cleanliness is all critical for our operation. We cannot afford not to have a clean and safe place. Our revenues have increased from fiscal year 07-08. We were generating $3 million. This year it's $4.6 million. We've raised our revenue by about 53%. We've also decreased our...
What do you attribute that to?
I attribute it to leases. I attribute it to adjustments in parking revenue, and identifying what we would consider non-performing buildings, buildings that were empty that we could then go in and enhance them and then RFP them out for.
So the new lease agreements are more aligned with market rate?
They're discounted off the market rate, but they're closer to the market rate. Yes, sir.
Increase the fees for parking, or?
Yes, we did. Yeah.
And what was the third piece?
Identifying buildings within El Pueblo sphere that had never been leased before.
Underutilized?
Underutilized, precisely.
So is there any more growth potential there?
The answer is yes and no. Of course, the south end of the block, Pico, the Merced Theater, and the Masonic Hall could potentially generate revenue for us. But at the same time, the south end provides, through filming and events, about $400,000 a year. And so when we go forward with any RFPs, and we intend to do so, we have to keep that in mind as well, that there's going to be an offset of filming revenue.
Pueblo historically has been sort of controversial. Where on the controversy scale are we these days? Are we 0 to 10? Where would we be?
Well, I would say right now, today is probably 5. Tomorrow could be an 8. It swings like that.
What's happening tomorrow? What are you doing tomorrow?
One thing I've learned, Councilman, is the longer I'm there, the more decisions I make, and the more decisions I make, the more enemies I make. That's just the nature of the beast. So, but no, I was being a little bit flippant about that. But they're tomorrow's a commission meeting. We will have we'll be working with different groups at different times. And there's a lot of people who have a lot of stakeholder, as you well know, when you worked in the mayor's office, you saw it then as well. So, capital projects, a couple of ones that are pretty critical to us. We're finishing off the Puesto renovation. The center puestos were all redone to their historic originality. We have a CAM expansion. The Chinese American Museum is expanding. The biggest piece we have is the Siqueiros Interpretive Center. This is a $9 million project that we're working with the Getty, and Getty's paying for half. City is paying for half. And by the beginning of summer, we will open
That the mural that was hidden?
That is correct. Painted on the Italian Hall south wall, America
How long
Tropical.
have we been working on that project?
I'm sorry?
How long have we been working on that project?
25 years? As long as we worked on the leases. But the leases are done.
Wow.
And come summertime, we're going to open up an interpretive center. There will be a viewing deck that school-age children visitors will be able to go over and look at the mural. It's being conserved. It's being preserved. They're not redoing the mural. In the Sepulveda Center, that's where the story is going to be told. So we'll have a new museum opening up at the beginning of the summer. And then subsequent to that, we're working with Italian American Hall Foundation to open up the Italian American Hall for museums. So
Okay, so you have some new things coming.
we got a few things coming. We're off the general fund. We are, as my colleague in Recreation and Parks, we face the same issues in a smaller scale, of course. But when we lose 10%, we're losing one person. So we're a small operation, but we continue to do well. We've met most of the obligations during a controller audit that sort of paved the way for strengthening the administration there, and we're happy about that.
Okay, thank you very much.
You're welcome, sir.
You still here?
Yes, sir.
Libraries? Congratulations.
Thank you, Councilman.
I think great opportunity for you.
Thank you very much. It's been a great opportunity and pleasure and honor to work here for the city of Los Angeles for the last 3 years. It's lots occurred, certainly, and it's been quite a
You don't
challenge.
have to say that. You can just say whatever you want.
Just in general, we, unlike my two colleagues who reported just a moment ago, we are in a little better shape. As you know, in March 2011, the voters approved Measure L, which is a charter amendment that will give the library additional allocation over the next 4 years for library operations. That's the good news. It'll take us back to the 2009 funding levels and allow us to restore services and hours of service primarily to that level. The challenge certainly for us is going to be that we're also expected to pay for all of our indirect expenses out of that. So we're being very, very careful about how we rebuild the organization, as well as making sure that where we can, we look for opportunities to save money rather than invest in things that we won't be able to sustain. All of our projections going forward on Measure L are based on the assumption that there'll be no increases in property values over the next 4 years. I'd like to think that that's not going to be true, and that might be the little bit of margin that we have to start some new innovative programming at the library system. In terms of where we're at with Measure L, this is the first year of Measure L funding for the library. With the additional money that we got this year, we were able to restore a 6 day of service, so now all libraries are open 6 days a week. In our coming year, and this is all spelled out in the ordinance, year 2, we will be adding 2 additional evenings to the library across the entire city. Year 3 will be focusing on restoring our materials budget, our book budget, and one of the big things certainly for the modern public library is looking at more what we call e-media, so all the digital content that's out there, e-books, downloadable music files, et cetera, that are in high demand in our libraries today. And then in year 4, we should be back to 7 days a week at 9 locations, and all other libraries open 6 days a week. So restoration is the goal at the end of the 4-year period. I'm joined here by my colleague Chris Morita, who's our Assistant General Manager, and Cheryl Collins, who is the Interim Director of our branch libraries. As you know, we have 72 branches in the city and the Central Library, about 1.5 million square feet of public space. And the good news is that libraries are still very significant, very popular, especially in the low-income communities. We offer a safe haven for kids after school. We're doing a lot more programming. We have a couple new initiatives. We are trying to establish homework centers at all of our libraries. We're doing pretty well. Next year, we should be able to have those centers fully installed at all 72 branch libraries. As part of our future plan, we're looking at creating something called Digital LA. We have only about 10% of the items that we have in our archives have been digitized, primarily photographs. And our goal is to use additional money in the future to create a online archive of a lot of documents, photographs, movie scripts, things that we have in our collection that we own copyright on. Be a tremendous opportunity not only to preserve those items, but to make them more accessible. Also, next year, we are going to launch a new strategic plan for the library, which will help us kind of focus in on what the priorities are going to be for the future as they're told to us by the community. One last note is that state funding has been severely slashed for us in the coming fiscal year. Not that it was a big chunk of money for our overall budget, but we're looking at a loss of about $1.3 million. And so that will have an impact on us, certainly. And our revenues are down from fines and fees. And I attribute that primarily to the fact that we were open less hours. We're hoping that will pick up a little bit. Not that we're trying to encourage people to accrue fines, right? But I think that as more population, as a greater number of people come in.
Finish the book campaign.
That's right.
Yeah.
Good idea.
Take your time. Finish the book.
So that's the overview of the organization. If you have any questions.
Well, first of all, you're transitioning out. What is the process for a selection of a new director?
My last day on the payroll is mid-April, approximately April 20th. So I know that the mayor is very anxious to make an appointment as soon as possible. And I believe that
You're going through that process already?
Yes,
Okay.
working with personnel.
Okay. And do we have an anticipated date for selection, or is he going to hang in with an interim director for a while? Or?
Well, what the mayor has said to me is he'd like to be able to announce as early as May.
Oh.
So that's pretty aggressive.
Okay. And you're going, excuse me for forgetting, but you're going,
I'm going to the University of Southern California, where I will be the vice dean of libraries.
so you're still going to help us?
Absolutely,
Because you'll be right in the neighborhood?
as long as I'm wanted.
Okay. Yeah, I'm sure you'll be wanted. Well, thank you. We've had some discussions about literacy, and I've always wanted to see the library participate in a more focused way on literacy programming and doing more social analysis of how we're impacting literacy. You got to know how to read to be able to
Right.
participate in the library services. So, what are we doing in that respect?
Well, our adult literacy program is going very strong. We have 20 locations throughout the city, and as you know, that's primarily volunteer-driven. The tutors are trained by us, and they meet typically one-on-one with adults who are in need of remedial reading help or basic literacy skills. We have a couple of new initiatives not on the drawing board, in execution right now. One of our major goals for the library is investing in new readers. So we're starting at the other end of the spectrum, if you will, with a We Read Together campaign. That campaign is focusing on young children below third grade as well as their parents. We've also blended those two programs with a campaign for parents to get involved with literacy. Chris, I'm not sure I remember the name of that program.
Families for Literacy?
Families for Literacy program, and we had a goal this year, which we've exceeded, which is to double the number of families involved with that program. A lot of these programs are in existence, but they're kind of below the radar in that there is a lot of privacy issues with respect to people who have some reading difficulty, but it's still a big component of what we do. We're also focusing now on what we're calling digital literacy, computer literacy, making sure that our community knows how to use the technology as well. So that's another piece that we're doing.
Okay, sounds interesting. Thank you. To what extent, I should have asked the other two presenters, but I chair an ad hoc committee to develop master plan on information technology. To what extent are we coordinated and collaborating with the other city departments so that people have easy access to their information? Or do you have an independent server that
Yeah.
takes care of your stuff separate and apart from the city system?
We do work very closely with the city system in that we have our all of our internal, if you will, computer services are on the city's platform. However, a significant amount of the work that we do is the public face, if you will, the public access computers, which we have over 2,300 now and throughout the library system. The city was fortunate to receive, through the leadership of the ITA, the Information Technology Agency, to receive a BTOP grant of $7 million about 18 months ago. The library's share of that was about $5.5 million. So we have been able to upgrade not only the equipment, but we've also been able to offer, as part of that grant program, to offer classes in Spanish and English and I think it's Chinese in a couple of communities to make sure that people are able to use that technology. On that end, I think we're doing fairly well. A lot of the services that we deliver now are actually delivered online, and what we're finding is people are coming into the library having already done research on our catalog, on our resources, on our online databases to see what's here, what's in our collection, then coming to pick things up. So it's a great tool. What we're looking at, I think, in the future is to create more of a what I would call a social presence. We do consult with and work with ITA on a lot of those issues because in many cases it makes sense for us to make sure that we're aware of what's going on.
Okay. Maybe when you're in your new capacity, we could have a casual conversation about the real on that issue. But libraries are relative to technology are an interesting position, and they're critical to. I'm particularly, for example, curious at what the ramifications are on our library system if the school district eliminates the adult ed programs for which has been proposed. I don't know whether they deferred that item or not, but it's a very serious consideration at LA Unified. They could have a dramatic impact on people demanding our services. So we have to keep track of that. But no, I think people like our libraries,
Yeah.
and we've expanded them, and hopefully we can continue to keep them open a little bit longer because of Tom's work with the proposition.
Councilman, on that issue with the adult ed, I think next year we're looking at an opportunity to kind of rethink what it is about the library and the kind of services it's going to deliver. We're going to ask stakeholders like you and other community groups to give us their opinions about what the priorities should be for library services. We did launch the last year a pilot ESL program in one of our branch libraries, and it's my experience that those programs tend to be oversubscribed. So if the libraries could even do, 10% more, it would go a long way to meeting those needs of those who are in adult basic ed and may not have opportunities.
Yeah, well, that'll be one of our challenges. But anyway, thank you very much.
Thank you.
What's left? Disability? Is that the last one?
Yeah, 2 or 3 others.
Nope, cultural affairs. Oh, cultural affairs and who? Aging. The zoo. Why don't you all come up? If there's a chair, come on. Come on down.
Don't be shy. There's plenty of room.
I'm Tony Abraham on behalf of Regina Houston Swain, who's Executive Director of the Department on Disability. She's on jury duty this week. The Department on Disability is responsible for policy enforcement of the Americans with Disability Act. The American Disability Act is very much like the Title VII of the Civil Rights Act of 1964 that prohibits discrimination based upon race, color, ancestry, sex, and religion. The 1990 American Disability Act simply extends that with people with disabilities as well. And so we've been responsible for enforcing all 5 titles, which very briefly, Title I is dealing with employment, especially with city employees. We've been very successful with that. We have ADA adaptive equipment for them, as well as personnel working on ensure that reasonable accommodations is being made for them. Our biggest issues have been with Title II when it comes to private providers. Are they in compliance? And then Title III through V. Our concern with Title III through V with public conveyance and public services, have we in fact in all our city departments enforcing the American with Disability Act? We were required between 1990 and 1997 to put together what's called a ADA transition plan. That gave us an opportunity to look at all our departments, all our services going out to ensure they were in compliance. We need to revisit that now because we have been faced over the last 2 years. We will call it something of an unprecedented onslaught of maybe 3 to 4 lawsuits right now and potential lawsuits. Those areas have been within the area of emergency management that has a disability aspect, the CRA because of housing that's being provided, and also even the sidewalks that you may have been hearing as well. Those claims come up because people with disability does not have access to the pathways. And the same thing when it comes to communication. Our concern with the police department is if someone is deaf and they come in with an emergency, do they have the means of communicating with the people across? So what we're looking to do now is find the funding in order to make sure we have some form of technology where we can have sign language interpreters. Because we're a very small staff, our focus, very much like the city attorney's office, is on enforcement to ensure that the city is enforcing the policy. So we're looking for the funding and the staffing in order to try to reduce our exposure to liability. Our executive director has proposed to the mayor's office, and we don't meet with CAO and the mayor office until March the 9th, of a way to enhancing our staffing through backfilling as well as new positions right now in order to try to reduce those liabilities. Secondly, we are, and this is Jerry DeVilla is here, we are looking for, like many departments, cuts within the CDBG of 20%, and those involves our AIDS policy program, our AIDS prevention, and our computerized information center, which acts as a very important link within the referral service throughout the county of Los Angeles. I wanted Jerry DeVilla at least to give us a few notes on the AIDS coordination office right now.
AIDS coordinator office. Councilman, I'm Jerry Davila. I'm with staff with the AIDS coordinator office. I guess too, I'm sure if you're aware, but we lost our AIDS coordinator, went on to greener pastures, Simon. Right now, we're at a critical point in our program. We'll begin contracts for the contract year for beginning this April 1. But with the CDBG 20% funding cut, we've had to notify our contractors that each program will need to be cut by 20%.
Which programs are those?
These are our AIDS prevention programs.
We have 19 contractors.
It includes syringe exchange and also HIV testing. Also, a worrisome topic is our policy program. Unfortunately, we're pretty much dependent on the CDBG program. In the last 3 years, in terms of salaries, the city has had to cover our related costs. With the additional 20% cut this year, we're probably looking at having to eliminate our operating budget so that we'll just have enough for salaries and hoping that the city will pick up the related. That means that we'll have to eliminate our $50,000 AIDS prevention technical assistance program, our $50,000 annual study, and no money for travel or anything, so that the new AIDS coordinator will have to come into the office with no operating budget, just a continuation of our AIDS prevention program and in salaries. Okay, well, just to advise you as to where we're at in terms of our where the AIDS program is going, there's a new emphasis now on HIV testing and also identifying individuals who test positive, get them into treatment as soon as possible, and also maintain them in treatment. There's where we're at, and that's where we're going in the future, and we work closely with the County of Los Angeles. So interaction between our office and the county and at the federal level is crucial in terms of keeping abreast of the epidemic and new treatment methodologies and new prevention. Just wanted to make you aware as to where we're at with that.
And that was that's one of our major programs.
How
is
does
they-
the scale of the city's project fit into the HIV AIDS?
We mostly we identify the county still hasn't. Well, I have to be careful with this, but I mean in terms we test. Our programs are emphasizing HIV testing, universal, and I believe that's vis-a-vis the county. They look at
whole scheme of
we try to fund projects that are perhaps not of major on the scale of importance to the county, and also projects that are.
So describe the county's.
Well, let me
services.
state it this way, based on what I'd heard from them before. The concern we had is that the city of Los Angeles had a very small policy enforcement side, but because they were small, they were very nimble, and they could experiment far more than the county could. So they were talking directly to the Center of Disease Control and Prevention within Atlanta, experimenting with programs. So instead of focusing on groups that are likely exposed to HIV, they began experimenting with broad testing, which CIC had said was going to be far more, CDC is going to be far more profitable than other programs. So there had been some tension between the city and the county in regards to what policy be in place and how should we go about experimenting. So we in the county now are experimenting more of the model of it should be wide testing rather than looking at particular groups only that are likely to be exposed. So that was a difference of opinion we had, but because we're small, we could experiment and go out there funding certain groups through our CDD fund, doing research, and then mainly doing the advocacy and consultation with both the council and the mayor's office about this is the policy we should be going forward within the next 5 to 15 years. So that's what the difference between us and the
But
policy.
in terms of, I'm just trying to get a sense of scale. In terms of all the services that are provided in the city of Los Angeles for HIV and AIDS, how big are we?
Yeah.
Well, let us get back in contact with you on that one. I mean, in the sense of allow his staff to actually write something up and provide that to you.
Well, Councilman, just to we can do that, but to begin with, we don't do treatment.
Right, and
That's
kind of what I want to
the
know.
county's budget is about 14 million
So
in
you
terms
sort
of.
fill some gaps that they don't provide.
Correct. Our budget is about 1 million, and also very important is that we have a very aggressive syringe exchange program. The county finally identified some tobacco Prop A funds that they're using to start. They've started their own syringe exchange program, but it's pretty limited in terms of the county, population
How's
size.
the coordination between the county and the city?
We work well. We work well with the county in terms of the syringe exchange programs.
So do you
Yeah.
strategize on targets?
We've as to certain areas, and hours of operation and agencies. They basically have piggyback on our agencies.
And our staff is actually chairing one of the county committees now when it comes to HIV and AIDS. So we're looking at the county's 5-year plan with our contributions as well. So we're all trying to go in the same direction more than we were 5 years ago.
Yeah, and actually we're working on the plan. We actually have staff that's working on the plan.
And the other 3 points, let me make this very quickly. So we are looking to update our transition plan to make sure all our other departments are in compliance because we are greatly concerned with, because of budget cuts, the impression we're getting is that the disabled community as advocates are concerned about the failure on the part of the city to keep to their commitments of the ADA. And also, we're looking to work with the mayor's office, city attorney's office, personnel, and others about the enforcement authority within the department itself to ensure that all departments are in compliance. And then finally, our CIC, our Computerized Information Center, it has been very successful in its referral service. We're having 2 people now who are getting their national certification when it comes to social policies and how to advise people about SSI, SSDI, and other federal programs that's available. And I think that's all we have for the Department on Disability.
Okay, well, thank you very much.
Provide additional information for you, Councilman.
Who's next?
I'll go. No sense letting the zoo go last.
I have several projects, several items, so I know I can afford to wait.
All right. Good afternoon, council member. John Lewis is Zoo Director from the Los Angeles Zoo and Botanical Gardens. And this is Denise Verrett. She's the AGM at the zoo as well. Welcome to your new assignment. So I look forward to working with you in your office. Start off with the first thing that's coming up very soon is March 8th. We'll be opening our new reptile, amphibian, and vertebrate center, and hopefully you'll be there for that at opening day. It's the morning of the 8th, Thursday. So I know you guys have nothing to do on Thursday mornings, so hopefully you can make that. It's a great facility. It's really changed the way we're going to be showing these animals and sharing them with the public. So we're anxious to see people to see it and putting animals in it right now for that opening. Also, every 5 years, our zoo is accredited by the Association of Zoos and Aquariums, and it's a 5-year cycle. We're in the very end of that right now, and at the end of March, we'll have our hearing, and we feel real confident we'll be accredited, but it's obviously one of our priorities right now. They look at everything, not just animal care. They look at our business, education, conservation, research programs, looking for a full-service zoological institution. To that end, just to quickly, we kind of see our service to the taxpayers as obviously a recreational site, but also conservation and education are a big part of our mission. Conservation of the animals in our collection, animals in the world, and also conservation of the resources we use. We sit on about 120 acres in Griffith Park, have about 1,100 resident animals, and we serve 1.6 million visitors a year. So it's a very well-used facility in the city. The big issue facing us right now is the resolution of the question about governance of the zoo, whether we're going to remain a city department or be managed by a nonprofit.
That's the elephant in the room, so to speak.
Yeah, or let's pick another animal. We dealt with elephants enough, I think.
Yeah, Billy still ours. Yeah.
So, yeah, that is the big issue right now. And hopefully this fiscal year that will be resolved, at least with an answer, and we all know what our future holds for the zoo and the city.
Well, I want to be very clear on that. I absolutely want to work to ensure that we don't toss our city employees to the side. I think our responsibility goes beyond just managing a zoo. We have a responsibility to ensure a continuum of service. So I'll be looking to work with you on how to merge the notions of management with protecting the workforce that has the experience to manage the zoo and the animals specifically
Right. I'd be happy to talk with you further on that. I think that's a critical issue as well.
Herb Wesson has a motion
Right.
that I will not give short shrift to. I'm going to look at it in great detail to make sure that the analysis is complete and the employees have every opportunity to offer the service, of course, with the challenges that we all face in terms of budget.
Okay, great. Yeah.
Recognizing that, but I'm not wedded to one side of the equation. I'm just saying that Mr. Wesson has made it very clear that he expects his motion will be given full respect.
And it has been. I'm part of it, and Denise is too, part of a working group that's been meeting for the last several months, addressing those issues that are in the motion. It includes the zoo, the CAO, the CLA, labor representatives. So we're looking at, what ways that we can continue to provide the service at a lesser cost to the city. So we know that needs to come forward before any other consideration.
Yeah, but I also want to take advantage of the revenue generating opportunities,
Right.
marketing opportunities, and I don't want to lose the power of the frankly the power of a union
Mhm.
that connects to hundreds of thousands of employees and has lobbying capabilities at the state and federal level that even transcend the city of Los Angeles.
Right.
In terms of impact. I think that would be a foolish mistake. So, but I love the zoo.
Yeah, I know you use it in your family, too.
Well, I haven't, I don't go there too often, but now I have a 4-year-old, and last year you were kind enough to give us a tour, and you know, it's a wonderful facility, and I'd like to do everything we can to improve it. So it will be a focus of this committee for the
Great.
next year.
Great, we
Yeah.
appreciate that.
So we'll get into the details. You don't have to go
Yep,
through
that's fine.
a whole bunch of stuff, but I am looking forward to the reptile exhibit.
Good.
I'm not sure Camila will want to go to that, but
Well, tell her everything's behind glass. So visitors are all protected, and there's even pass if you want, you can go around the building and not go into it, so.
yeah, we'll figure it out. Anyway, so we'll be working very closely with you on,
Great.
on primarily that issue.
Okay,
Okay.
appreciate that.
Okay, who else, what else we have left?
Aging and
Age-
cultural affairs.
And cultural affairs? Okay, well, duke it out. Which one's going first?
Go ahead, Sal.
Oh, you guys are too kind.
It's okay, I still have other items on the agenda, so.
Cultural affairs, how we doing?
We actually have some bad news, but I think we could temper it with some good news. Just a, overview of the department. We've taken, as other departments, our share of cuts as well.
Sure.
Because our department is funded by transient.
Did you introduce yourself?
Oh, I'm
to the
sorry,
record?
Saul Romo with the Department of Cultural Affairs. And Olga Garay English apologizes. She had a medical appointment, so she couldn't be here. But I believe our office has been working with your office to try and establish a separate appointment to talk with you a little bit more in depthly about the department, about issues in your respective district as well.
And one thing, I would hope that, and I should have said this to Rec and Parks as
Mhm.
well. So, is anybody here from Rec and Parks? Yeah. Could you convey with the new redistricting, it is incumbent on you departments especially to let the council members know what new services they have, because there's going to be a lot of changes, and probably want to start with the chair of this committee, because I'm getting a considerable. There's going to be a considerable change, at least based on the proposal. And I think, I don't think any council district remains 80% whole. I think most of them have 30 to 40% change, and some of them have even more than that. So those council members are going to need to be updated. I think the quickest way to get to know a community is to know the cultural aspects and the parks.
We certainly will be monitoring that closely because we like to look at the equity and the distribution among the council districts as well for the services.
Yeah.
And so to the extent that the redistricting is going to affect any imbalances, we certainly are going to be very cognizant
Because
about
of the
that.
redistricting, I asked the CAO to wait on their recommendations for Prop K, because council members would be very upset if they allocate money to an area and then it ends up being in somebody else's district. So I thought it would make more sense to wait until we have a firm grasp of what the district lines are going to be.
So as I was saying, because we're funded from a percentage of the transient occupancy tax dollars, over the past years we saw a very steep decline. So the department has lost about maybe a quarter to 30% of its budget. We were from a high of at one point 100 employees, then down to 80 employees, and now we're down to 40 employees. But this, we have lost a tremendous number of people through layoffs, to ERIP as well. So we have suffered, and we've had to scale back on our programmatic dollars as well. But notwithstanding those cuts, and obviously all the departments have had a share in the pain, I was using this analogy earlier that we can now see that we're starting to remove some of the stitches. The scar is still there, and it still hurts when it gets cold. But we're starting to dig ourselves out of the hole. Despite the cuts, we've managed to keep most of the hours intact at our art centers. We have managed to not have to shut down any facilities or board up any facilities. We have come off the general fund. We are now paying for all of our direct costs and related costs. We are also contributing to General Services Department to help defray the costs of some of the maintenance at our facilities. We do, and more importantly, since Olga Garay has been at the department has brought in $16 million in outside funds, which is quite a considerable amount of money when you think about our $10 million operating budget. And I'd like to just acknowledge Andrew Kasdan in the audience because he's here on several of the other grant application requests that are on the agenda because he's really been instrumental in helping us solicit some of those dollars as well. And so despite those reductions, we managed to bring in money, but then there are some challenges. We are victims of our own success. We don't have the staff to manage all of these programs as we bring them in. Our general manager is really actively pursuing public-private partnerships, and we're taking our city dollars, leveraging them to obtain these grant dollars, and then taking the cumulative dollar effect of those dollars to bring in outside dollars from private foundations. So that's how we've been able to sustain our programming and expand our job opportunities as well. Our challenges are that certainly we're trying to rebuild some of the staffing. I mean, at this time last year, I had no accounting staff, and whether you're a big department such as Recreation Parks or small agencies such as ourselves, Aging and Cultural Affairs, we still have to do audit reports for the controller. We still have to do reversion exercises. The bills still have to be paid. So we're slowly trying to rebuild our staff and identify where the real holes are. Our field operations are still continue to suffer. We have an outstanding Arts Center request for proposals that we are anxious to release because we have partners who are waiting to see the release of the proposals because they'd like to do some long-term capital fundraising and long-term programmatic fundraising, but they can't without a long-term lease to go to their potential funders to establish that they have residency. So as we set up a meeting with your office, we'd like to talk to you a little bit more about that to see how we could move that along.
Okay.
And
Total budget?
I'm sorry?
Total budget?
Total budget for our department, it's about $10 million. Operating budget off the transit
When
occupancy
you say you
tax.
brought in 16 million, that's
Yeah.
over a course of,
That's over a course of four and a half years.
okay.
We also do manage, one of our challenges as well, we do manage arts developer fee monies. For instance, in your respective district, there's about $420,000 in arts development fee monies. And we're working now closely with the city attorney's office to try and work on ways that we can use the money so that we can spend the money and have some viable options for the various council districts. That's one of our challenges.
400,000?
Now, in your respective district alone, but cumulatively, there's probably in about $6 or $7 million in that pot of money.
I just care about my district.
But I just wanted to put it in context, though, that we have a lot of money
Just
that we
for one
want to spend.
development?
No, they're from, I believe, 3 or 4 developments in the district. When we meet with your office, we could give you a breakdown of the individual developments and what the projects are and the value attributed to each one of the developments. As well, one of our other challenges is that obviously we want, as we develop into these public-private partnerships, one of our challenges is spending the money quickly enough before we exhaust a grant term. So we want to work with your office as well as work with the city attorney's office to find solutions, and with the CAO's office, where we could receive grant money, expend the grant money quickly, and get it out to our program operators. Because the way the city's structure is right now, to have to go through the legislative process to receive the money, then go through a contracting and procurement process, and then get the money out, we're almost at the end of a grant term, and I'm certain that some of the smaller departments that receive those monies can share some of the pain. Anyway, so that's an overview of some of our challenges and some of our issues. If you have any specific questions, we'll certainly be available.
Not really. I'll be happy to work with you to get more information. By the way, if I do end up with Salin Tahunga, as is proposed by the commission, I definitely want to get to know more about the Mogrority Arts Center.
Yeah, and that's a very good example of one of the facilities that does really well as a private, non-profit operating center.
Then I very, very much want to see it.
I'll be more than happy to work with you on that.
Thank you. AG.
Hi, James Dunn, Assistant General Manager, Department of Aging. I brought some background information about our department and what our current priorities and projects are. As a designated area agency on aging, we're one of 33 in the state. We're primarily grant funded. About 88% right now is grants. Most of our services are contracted out with nonprofits, and we usually target our services as a citywide delivery through our network, so that there's equity of distribution of services. As to your question about how redistricting will impact services in council districts, because the council districts are redrawn every 10 years, we don't change our area service aging service areas. We basically keep them the same and just work with the council offices. But we will review to see which dining centers and senior centers are now shifted into each council member's district and provide them that notification. The highest priority for us this current year is our area plan. We produce a 4-year area plan. We're working on our new area plan right now. We're doing it in conjunction with our counterparts in the county so that it's more like a regional approach. We also find that this is advantageous to us when we apply for grants, that if there are some commonality in our goals and objectives, it lends for a stronger application. One of the other priorities that we have is that last year's adopted budget, the council and mayor approved the department to transition its network of adult day support centers into wellness centers. We had seen how the funding, both locally and at the state, for adult day health centers were being cut drastically, and right now it's being threatened to be completely eliminated. So we asked that with the money that we had, which was a combination of general city purpose funds and CDBG funds, that we transition our network to evidence-based models. These are programs that were researched and developed by universities so that they're scientifically proven to improve the health of seniors. And part of the reason why we wanted to do that is we want access to all those health care dollars. If we can establish a network of programs that eventually could be fundable by health care dollars, that would be a new sustainable source of funding that will free up the city's commitment to these programs. We're into the first year. We're on target. We've already served 1,000 seniors under the new program. Our transition plans are for 2 more years. Each of our contractors have been busy searching for additional grants. We've been helping as well. Earlier on, you had mentioned the threat to the LAUSD adult education program. That's a serious concern for us. One of the one of the deals that our general manager negotiated, Laura had 40 adult ed teachers assigned specifically to these wellness centers. I mean, her point was, who's better to actually deliver these programs where you have to follow the scientific model step by step than a professional teacher? Essentially, that was $1.5 million worth of free labor from LAUSD to our programs. So whether or not that's cut is going to have a severe impact on our program. Okay. Another project that we've been working on, and we're very happy, it's been a long time coming, is that we had applied to MTA for 2 transportation programs. They notified us that they awarded us the program, but it's taken them quite a while before they finally signed off on the MOU. We have the signed MOU, and we're going to go ahead and start implementation. What we've done is we've taken our existing door-to-door transportation program that's available in all our senior centers and used that as a match for these 2 new transportation programs. It's $6 million over 3 years, so it's about $2 million per year. One of the 2 transportation programs is the door-through-door program. We're trying to serve those seniors who are becoming more frail, who needs a little extra help. So whereas we have a program that will escort a senior from the door of their home to their medical appointment or wherever else they need to go and safely back, now we'll have a program to actually go into the home and help the senior prepare, take them to the doctor's office, go into the lobby of the doctor's office, make sure that they get to their appointment, and then back home safely. And the second component of our transportation program is part of our Title V job training program for older adults. We feel that, and it's like a pilot, we think that if we can get some transportation services for these senior trainees, they have a wider range of places where they can go to get job experience, and that in turn will improve their ability to get a job placement. It also allows us for the first 6 months, once they find an unsubsidized job, to continue getting transportation services. And why 6 months? 6 months was chosen specifically because under the new rules of our training program, they have to remain employed for 6 months before we get credit for that placement. So it's a win-win situation for us. And those are things that we're
Okay.
currently working
Just
on.
out of curiosity, is our senior population growing?
Yes, currently, we're projecting over 600,000 seniors.
Not this way.
No.
We're projecting over 600,000 seniors in LA City. I think in the report that I provided, the number is 669,474. However, we're not going to get an accurate census count for another couple of years until the Census Bureau actually runs those more detailed reports.
What was it before?
About 600,000 was the projection we had last year, and then it was like over 500,000 the previous year from what.
But 10 years ago, what was it?
Oh, it was for the city just around 460 or so.
And that's primarily because they're living longer?
Yes, that and the baby boomers.
Okay.
Yeah, I think last year, every 7 seconds, we had another member in the senior community.
Every 7 seconds?
Seconds, yes. So our business
There's
is
another
growing.
one.
We just need more funding.
There's another one. Okay. Well, thank you very much. You have an enormous challenge because the growth rate for seniors, I think, is the good news is they're living longer. The challenge is they're living longer, and we have more of them and fewer services to provide at that same time.
Right. And it's
So actually, I think it was 2 years ago was the first year in the United States history where the average age, at least in the last 40 years, where the average age of death dropped. So that's a tremendous statistic that presents great challenges to us. So, anyway, keep up the good work.
Thank you, sir.
Okay, and thanks for the good presentation. What I'd like to do first is take care of the routine items. We
Yeah,
have-
could I just say something, Richard? Just say hello. I want to say James is one of the finest young administrators and very passionate towards his work at the Department Agency. I know you heard from a lot of special people. I was in Transportation Committee, but I want to compliment James because he's always there fighting for the seniors.
Thank you very much.
Items 2 through 9 are routine items. Can you want to move
move 'em.
consent? Okay,
Move 'em.
that matter is approved. Items 10 through 13 and 15 are old files that don't believe are relevant. We'd like to note and file those.
Very good.
With Mr. Labange's support. Those matters will be noted and filed. We are continuing item 14 at the request of Mr. Reyes. And we have no other items before us. There were outstanding presentations from all the other departments.
Could I have a copy of the tape, Mr. Clerk, so I could hear it? And Ms. Israel, could we meet right now?
We'll have it probably in a couple days.
Yeah, it's okay. I'll
Yeah.
listen to it instead of Carol.
We have one public comment card, Joan Taylor. I thought you did a great job. Is Joan Taylor? Oh. Okay.
Thanks for that copy.
Yeah, no problem.
Hi, Joan.
Thank you. Mr. Anacon, you may not remember me, but I'm Joan Taylor, and several years ago, for 15 years, I assisted seniors by getting complimentary tickets to live theater and classical music concerts for them, and found it very productive. And incidentally, since Tom LeBond was just here, through his neighborhood council, I was able to spend $20 and get $200 worth of toys for a South LA school at 90% discount. And but I'm here on a serious matter, and my words will follow that of the letter that I have given to each of the members. Each month, I use captioning services 4 to 5 times. I attend 2 board meetings, the Greater Wilshire Neighborhood Council and the Mid-City West Community Council, And this month, I also will attend a public hearing for a 6-story building that will go up at Beverly and Fairfax. I often receive applause from the 45 members of the Mid-City West Community Council and the 20 members of Greater Wilshire for my words on the high cost of the bullet trains. That's the so it shows the respect the members have for me. Now, I use the captioning services of Total Recall, and I have complained only of one woman. Jane Goodman is her name. She continually uses the electronic device on her person to cause a laser injury to the brain and cause me to forget the public comment or part of it that I would make to these groups. And I have asked repeatedly, I've asked at least 5 times to Sandy Eisenberg, the owner of Total Recall, a service in Agora Hills. I've asked that Jane Goodman never be assigned to me. But again, this week it was twice, or this month it was twice, for the board meeting of the Greater Wilshire Neighborhood Council, and last night for the Transportation Committee of Mid-City West Community Council. And each time there was injury to me by electronic misuse, plus mocking. If I ask her, she is always trying to sit behind me. Of course, that gives her a clear shot. Cybercrime is, unfortunately, something I deal with as a result of a criminal harassment. But the mockery is a problem because it's seen by many members of these councils. And I am asking, I have tried over and over again, I have tried to get Richard Ray and the general manager of disabilities, Houston Swain, to change my captioning service from Total Recall to any West LA captioning service. Real Time is one that I would suggest. And they have never done it. So because of that, I've come to you in desperation in the hope that you will order the disabilities to stop sending Total Recall and to insist that I get a different captioning service for my own safety and for the general good services that I'm entitled to as a senior.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. We'll be happy to.
I am deaf, so I don't hear your words. But
Oh, okay. With that, this meeting is adjourned. Thank you.
thank you.